Letter number 29 by the Rabash. To the friends, may they live forever. Some time ago I wrote you a letter, but still received no reply if it has reached you. And except for you are all slacking in your letters to me. This must be a matter of an act that time causes, and I'll say no more. Concerning Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, for the trees, which is on the 15th of Shvat, in the Masechet of Rosh Hashanah, on the 1st of Shvat, what is the reason? Rabbi Hoshea said, it is because most of the rains of the year have passed. It was written in the Tosfot that the above reason is also according to Bet Hillel, who concur with the 15th of Shvat, since by then the majority of the rainy days have passed, and it is the time of crouching, or the last third of the rainy season, and the resin is abundant in the trees, and the fruits have ripened. In the Masechet of Rosh Hashanah it is said, one who comes out on a Nisan, a Hebrew month, day, and sees blooming trees and says, blessed is he who did not deprive his world of anything and created it in good creations and good trees with which to delight people. We should understand. 1. What does he did not deprive his world mean? Are blooming trees a proof that nothing is missing? 2. Created good creations. What proof is this that creations are good? 3. The connection between man and tree. 4. It is known that if the majority of the rainy days have passed, it is a sign of the beginning of the year. This reason is both according to Beit Shammai and according to Bet Hillel. First, we need to understand the meaning of Rosh Hashanah in the work. It is known that Rosh Hashanah is the time of judgment, when people are sentenced favorably or to the contrary. Rosh, head, in Hebrew, is regarded as a root from which branches emerge. The branches always extend according to the essence of the root. For a root of oranges will not bring out branches of apples. According to the root and the rosh that a person establishes for himself at first, so he continues his life. The root is the foundation upon which the whole construction is built. The judgment that the person is judged in the beginning of the year means that the person himself is the judge and the executor. Since the person himself is the judge, the arbiter, the plaintiff, and the witness. It is as our sages said, there is a judgment below, there is no judgment above. Rains mean vitality and pleasure by which the tree bears fruit. Man's main work is during the winter days, on the long nights of Tevet, the month of Tevet, from the month of Tishrei, which is the general beginning of the year, to the month of Shvat, the majority of the rainy days have passed, meaning that a person has already received vitality and pleasure from Torah and the work. At that time, a person sentences himself. If he should continue throughout the year only with Torah and the work, or to the contrary. If he has one advocating angel over him out of 1,000 to testify to one's integrity, meaning if he has merit, then a person is notified of his integrity, meaning that he will walk on the right path. At that time, out of 1,000, as in, I will teach you wisdom. Then, after the deliberation, he is acquitted in the judgment, meaning that he has taken upon himself to henceforth engage only in pure things, called bestowal, both for the Creator and for people. But this is true only if merits are the majority, meaning that until now the majority of vitality he has received was from matters of bestowal. At that time he decides that it is worthwhile to continue, and then it is considered that he has been declared innocent. But if he did not receive the majority of vitality from spiritual matters, but derived all of his vitality from corporeal matters, and if he has merits called an advocating angel, then he is also declared innocent. That is, he decides to continue for the rest of the year only with matters of bestowal. If the majority are iniquities, meaning that after all the works and labors he still received the majority of vitality from matters of the will to receive for himself, the root of all iniquities and sins, then he is declared guilty. That is, he takes upon himself to henceforth proceed only as do the rest of the world, meaning with matters that are only for reception for oneself. This is man's guilt, since matters that are in reception for oneself detain a person from achieving one's eternal perfection and be awarded the sublime pleasures. This is regarded as condemning oneself, when one decides to continue the rest of his days only with matters that are condemning for the soul. This is why the Tosfot write, since by then the majority of the rain days have passed, etc., and the resin is abundant in the trees, and the fruits have ripened. That is, if he has passed the majority of the long nights of the winter days in Torah and work, and the resin is abundant in the trees, and he knows and feels that a fire is burning in his heart, as in her flames are flames of fire, the fire of the Lord, he decides to continue on this path. This is the meaning of, and the fruits have ripened, meaning that henceforth he will be rewarded with fruit. For this reason, the 15th of the month of Shvat is called the beginning of the year, when a person has already calculated whether to continue in the work or to the contrary. For by now he knows from which discernment he can draw life, from matters of self-reception or matters of bestowing contentment upon his Maker. He knows that all his work is only to obtain the desire to bestow, since the Creator has prepared for us desire to receive the pleasures at the time of creation, since he desires to do good to his creations and created the will to receive. Creation too would have remained a desire to receive, meaning that if we received the abundance of spirituality and eternity in our will to receive, the pleasures would have been incomplete from the perspective of the branch that wishes to resemble the root. This is why there is the bread of shame. This would leave creation deficient. For this reason, the Creator has prepared for us a correction called tzimtzum, or restriction. That is, where there is will to receive, a person feels concealment. As it is written in the introduction to the Sulam, that although the life that is clothed in the body extends existence from existence, its original root is still not apparent due to the restriction, the tzimtzum. And through adaptation to Torah and work, we are rewarded with the correction called reception in order to bestow, by which we are rewarded with adhesion with Him. It follows that by this everything becomes completed. This is the meaning of who did not deprive his world of anything, referring to the correction of bestowal, as will be written below. Now we will explain the connection between trees and people, which are sages connected. It is written, "For man is the tree of the field." That is, all the works that apply to trees in order to make them fit for bearing fruit apply also to man. Until a person is ready to bear fruit, he must endure all the works applied to trees or applicable to trees. The fruits are man's final goal. And once, at the 15th of Shvat meal, Baal Sulam explained why there is this matter of eating fruit. He said that it is because this is the whole difference between holiness and the other side, Kedusha and Sitra Achra. As it is written in the Zohar, another god is infertile and does not bear fruit. As he interprets in the Sulam, that is, their source runs dry and they wither until they are completely shut. But those who advance in Kedusha, in holiness, are rewarded with blessing in their works, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. This is why the people of Israel make an indication of it to show that the main thing is the fruits, and the fruits of holiness are by being rewarded with the revelation of his godliness, and he becomes as a never-ending fountain, advancing from degree to degree until one is rewarded and says, "He will be glorified in me, for he desires me, and he will be to me a gazelle's crown." The works that apply to trees were also given to man to qualify him. In Shavuot, he brings there things that are required for tending to trees, and from this we learn concerning man's work. Fertilizing, providing them with fertilizer. Likewise, man needs to add fertilizer to himself, which is waste. Indecent qualities in a person. However, one should not bring the fertilizer from outside, as is done with trees, but should bring the fertilizer from concealment to disclosure, meaning into his senses, so he will feel the measure of the lowliness of his indecent qualities. Otherwise, one cannot correct one's actions. Hoeing, digging at the base of the trees. Likewise, man should dig and search for his purpose, namely, what is the purpose for which he has come into this world. Removing calluses, cutting off the calluses, which are the flaws that appear in a tree. A callus is something that is outside of one's body. There are several things that a person does and which are seen outward by people. That is, during the prayer or when he speaks words of piousness to his friend, by which his friend sees his work, that is outside of his body. These must be cut out and cancelled. Instead, be humble with the Lord your God. That is, when a person performs some work for the Creator, the sign is if he seeks to conceal it from people. This is a mark that his aim is true, and if not, it is to the contrary. He is craving only to disclose to people, and he is purifying the body outwardly with poor excuses. But when he is aiming for the Creator, he naturally wants to cover the matter. Removing the leaves from the tree to make it easier on it. Likewise, man has leaves which precede the fruits, meaning that the fruits emerge on the leaves. This is the meaning of coming from lo lishma, not for her sake, to lishma, for her sake. The lo lishma is called leaves, and the fruits are the lishma. However, these leaves should be removed in order to make it easier on the tree to achieve lishma. Otherwise, if one does not remove the lo lishma, he will remain in a state of lo lishma. Afterwards, when rewarded with lishma, it is written, its leaves will not wither. Rather, all the works that were in lo lishma eventually enter kedusha, holiness. And there is a higher interpretation, as it is written in the Sulam, that leaves are the forces of judgment in the masach, in the screen, meaning that tzimtzum, the restriction that was on the will to receive, that no abundance would illuminate, but that there would be darkness. By this, the masach is born. It follows that the force of the judgment of the departure of the light brings him to make a masach by which he receives the strength to receive in order to bestow. Also, during the preparation, prior to being awarded entrance to the Creator's Hall, one should grow accustomed to the powers of overcoming the desires for self-reception. The way is to begin with small things, which do not give him that much delight and pleasure, and are easier to relinquish, and to say about them, were it not a mitzvah, were it not a commandment to engage in these matters, I wouldn't do them. Afterwards, he adds, until he accustoms himself to relinquish even the most important things for him. Even with things that touch his soul, he can say that, were it not a commandment, he would not engage in them. All this is required for him to be strong and trained in war. And then he is awarded entrance to the Creator's Hall to be among God's servants. The force that compels him to keep himself from all the things so that he will not be immersed in desires of self-reception is the force of judgment, which rules and keeps him from failing in the above. This is because when he has self-interest, the vitality and abundance promptly depart from him. Therefore, he determines and decides and keeps the masach that he will receive, so that he will receive specifically in order to bestow. It is likewise in the matters of preparation. The above-mentioned force of judgment shows its power, and its actions are apparent until one decides once and for all to never breach the laws of the Torah. But until one arrives at that final resolution as an unbreakable law, one is in a state of back and forth, regarded as a catapult, until one comes to fear the punishment of the above-mentioned force of judgment. Allegorically, even when one feels elated and thinks that he will never fall, if he fails with self-interest, whether if in mind or in heart, the power of judgment promptly rules over him and the spiritual vitality departs him. That is, he is denied of all the desire and fancy that he had in Torah and the work, and he falls into the authority of the Sitra Achra, who governs him. He has no tactic or strength to overcome her, and he follows her like sheep to the slaughter. She forces him to crave and derive vitality from the lowest desires of reception in reality, meaning such base things that ordinary God-fearing people will never want. The reason for this is that he was used to receiving spiritual vitality, and he finds nothing tasteful about the ordinary trivialities of this world. So, until he receives some reward instead of the spiritual vitality that he possessed, when he derived emotional satisfaction from them, he craves the lowest of the worldly matters. Perhaps there he will be able to satisfy his soul. At that time he is suspect of every transgression in the Torah, since the power of judgment pushes him into the Sitra Achra, and the desire to receive ceases to filling oneself with pleasure, so he will have some vitality to fill up for the Sitra Achra, called the root of the will to receive for oneself alone. For this reason he descends to the place of lowliness, for perhaps there he will find what he seeks. But it is questionable whether he will find what he is seeking there. And yet, he pokes through the trash like chickens pecking through trash. At the beginning of the fall, he still remembers the spiritual state that he had, meaning that the reshimo, recollection, still remains in him. At that time, he still knows that now he is considered dead, meaning doing all the lowly things, whether in thought or in action too, in a place where he feels no shame from people. And yet, he knows that this is not man's purpose, and that it is lowliness. He intellectually understands that he must overcome this time of descent. Although he knows and sees and feels, he is lying like the dead, hopeless, and tied with ropes of aviyut, or thickness, under the authority of the Sitra Achra. The memory that he has seems to him like a good dream, so that he will never be able to dream again. This is why he knows and feels, he is absolutely certain that it is impossible to continue the spiritual state that he had before. In other words, he does not have the strength of devotion and faith above reason as before. For this reason, this reshimo brings him nothing but suffering, because he is utterly incapable of escaping his current state. And because it is human nature to forget the suffering, for it is our nature to forget the dead, meaning that if he remembers his spiritual time, he sees that now he is dead. So he comes into an even greater descent. That is, he forgets his good state and believes that he has always been in the current state of self-reception and never desired the work of the Creator. Meaning that the words, "and you who cling," were certainly not said about him. Instead, all of his vitality comes only from corporeal matters. And if he sometimes remembers that he had a spiritual state, he excuses himself that even then it was probably not genuine, but an imitation. And most importantly, he does not need to come out of that state. But if he finally thinks, "What shall become of the correction of the soul?" he excuses himself that he will correct it in the next life, but not now. And then he comes to an even greater descent, meaning that he forgets to think for even one moment about everything that is happening with him. Instead, he is without any calculations, flowing with the currents of the world and having fun like everyone else. This is the meaning of descending and inciting a person towards self-reception, and ascending and slandering, meaning that he has broken the laws of the Torah and takes his soul and remains without any vitality. This continues until he is pitied from the heavens and is made to somehow fall into a good environment of books or authors, and he suddenly begins to feel again, "The voice of my beloved is knocking." Sometimes it can be to the contrary, that he comes into a more base environment, and by observing their lowliness, he suddenly begins to feel the herald of "Return, O sons." Then he promptly musters strength and is reminded of the ways and laws he had received and heard. And he becomes elated once more and promptly exits all the lowliness and is revived. At that time, he already feels that he has the power to overcome by powers of devotion, and he begins to choose the good once more and to loathe the bad. Only then he is the judge of choice and good counsels and upright conduct, and has the strength to go forward. But during the death, meaning when his dead is lying before him, no condolences are accepted. As it is written, "The dead are free." For when a person dies, he becomes free of the commandments, and no advice can help him. And if he fails with self-interest once more, the quality of judgment hits him once again, and he is placed in the catapult until the living, meaning the time when he is alive, will put it into his heart to beware and guard himself with all kinds of caution, so he will not fall again into the authority of the Sitra Achra. That fear from the force of judgment continues until it is carved into his heart, that he will determine his conducts steadfast, as it is written, "And he saw the Kenite, and took up his discourse, and said, 'Your seat is firm.'" Rashi interpreted that wicked Bilam said, "I wonder from where you have been granted this, for you were with him in the council, let us deal wisely with them, and now you have settled in the firm and strong of Israel." In other words, the Sitra Achra comes to him with the argument, "What is the matter with you? You always walked with me concerning matters of self-reception, and now you have set up your state firm, not to move an inch from your spiritual place." This is called fear of punishment, when one observes the law of the Torah for fear of punishments, of the power of judgment. This is the meaning of removing the leaves, as in, he asks it and he answers it, meaning ascends and descends. Through the questions and answers, one determines the real form of the work of the Creator. Dusting. The exposed roots are covered with dust. The root is regarded as thought, which is the root of the action. If the thoughts are revealed, meaning that one looks in every place and spies on every place, both on the ways and conducts one has received from one's teachers, whether they are true, then one needs to struggle with these thoughts, as in, and a man strove with him, said about Esav's minister, and accept them above reason. This is the meaning of, and he will be dusting in the dust of their feet.
This means that although you have spies who say, we will not go up, and although their spies, meaning the thoughts of the students, bring up dust, meaning that it seems to them that their teacher's words are as valuable as dust, he should still take his teacher's words above reason. Here I will offer an example. Baal HaSulam promised us that by walking in his path and following his guidance, we will be rewarded with his eternity, to cling unto him and to enter the king's palace. Although we all feel that we have not the properly pure qualities to be the king's servant, still, the Lord is near to the broken-hearted. Since all the indecent qualities that were inherently within us, the Creator has planted them in us and has created us with all the lowliness. Baal HaSulam said, "The Lord is high, and the low will see." Since the Creator loves the truth, for this reason the Creator brings near those who are truly low. Sometimes we come to a state of despair and feel that we will never rise from our current condition, meaning during the contemplation. It was said about this, dusting, meaning that we must fight these thoughts. Smoking under the tree, to kill the worms that grow in it. It is written about the manna. They left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul. Baal HaSulam interpreted the manna to mean faith. It is known that each day we must renew the faith. This is the meaning of gather each day, meaning even if it is still day for him, he should renew the foundation of the work, meaning the purpose of the work. One has to know that his being in the state of day is only the result of faith. Since if one follows the path of faith, he is rewarded with the clothing of Shekhinah, divinity, each according to his degree of faith. This means that the day is not his goal, but he can use the day in order to testify to faith. That is, one will say, now I see that I have been walking in the path of faith, because the result I have is that of a day. It follows that I must grow stronger in the root. Similarly, Baal HaSulam interpreted the shepherds of Abraham's cattle, that he gives nourishment to Abraham's possessions, meaning the quality of faith, as his quality is the father of faith, but receive the quality of faith as the goal and the essence. Otherwise, he is regarded as bowing to the sun. While the foundation is only faith, one is in a state of poverty and lowliness, as it is written, and I am a worm. In other words, Anochi, me or selfish, is regarded as faith. It causes one to feel that he is a worm because his whole work is above reason. And because he is above reason, he cannot feel pride. But if he does not renew the faith, but rather, as it is written, they left, etc., and he toys with his day and makes it the essence, then it bred worms. Where he should have been a worm, he bred, in Hebrew yarem, means both bread and was haughty, meaning was proud since he felt he was higher than everyone. All of this is because he works within reason. For this he came to bread, meaning pride. And his pride spreads afar until he comes to the measure of and became foul. As army men say, pride smells from afar. The advice for it is, as the Mishnah tells us, smoking. The smoke comes by burning, meaning that each day he burns his work from yesterday, and only today he begins to get into the joy of the holy work. To bring out the land of Israel from under the authority of reception and admit the point into a state where he feels that the wings of the Shekhinah divinity cover him. As it is written, who shields him all the day, and he dwells between his shoulders. In other words, precisely when assuming the path of faith, regarded as a burden that is carried on the shoulders, one is rewarded with the Shekhinah. It is as Baal HaSulam said, that each day we must give to the Creator everything that He has been through, whether mitzvot or transgressions, and begin anew. This is also the meaning of smoking, for the smoke blocks the eyes called the mind's eyes, which is one's within reason. Stoning means removing the stones. These are the understandings that he has within reason, which belong to the stony heart. That is, when he feels day and feels zest and emotions in the work, he says, now I see that it is worthwhile to be the servant of the Creator because I find pleasure and vitality in it. It follows that he already has support, meaning that from all of these supports he gets many stones, and he has a whole building within reason. These are truly stumbling stones. It is, as Pharaoh said, see upon the birth stool. If it is a boy, then you shall put him to death. That is, where you have pleasure, called stones, do not receive it into the stony heart, called reception. If it is a boy, meaning that bestowal has awakened to you from that, as in the shepherds of Abraham's cattle, then put him to death, meaning destroy these thoughts. But if it is a girl, meaning nukva, female, receiving everything into the will to receive, whether in mind or in heart, then she shall live. This is what Pharaoh advised to receive as vitality and foundation. But the path of Torah is to remove these views and thoughts. Cutting out means chopping off and cutting out the dry branches from the tree. That is, everything one has acquired from the environment by habit. Commandments and dry laws should be cut off, meaning forget the laws of overseas. It is so because the land of Israel is called Lishma, and what one takes from the environment is only Lo Lishma. Trimming means that when there are many fresh twigs, it is customary to cut off some of them and put them aside. That is, even the laws and wisdom that are truly moist. If there are too many, meaning that his knowledge is more than his works, then he must not use a lot of knowledge and scrutiny, because the majority appears primarily in actions, for each act testifies to the quality of its operator. We learn from all the above that people are akin to trees. This is the meaning of one who comes out on a Nisan, the Hebrew month, day, and sees a blooming tree, meaning that the trees have already begun to show their strength, meaning that it is already apparent that they want to impart fruits to man's benefit. To benefit means to bestow. As it is written, my heart overflows with a goodly matter, meaning I say my works are for the king, which is good. And since the trees are blooming, namely giving, they are called good trees. Clearly, at that time there are also good people, meaning that they too do things in order to bestow contentment upon their Maker. Otherwise, the trees too would not be imparting their fruits. As the sages said, the whole world is nourished for Hanina, my son. Because there are righteous who are giving, they act so that the trees will give. This is the meaning of did not deprive his world of anything. It means that he has prepared for us the engagement in Torah and Mitzvot by which we will achieve perfection, called reception in order to bestow. It follows that besides creating the will to receive, he has promptly created the correction of the bread of shame so that there would be completeness in the benefit. Thus one must give oneself an account each day, renew his work in overcoming, and forget the past. Instead, he should be very confident that from this day forth he will succeed in achieving permanent and eternal dvekut, adhesion. May the Creator help us with all of our troubles and redeem our souls, and we will be saved in corporeality and spirituality. Amen. May this be so.
Questions?
No. No, Nessie. Kadima.
Nessie, please.